Once there was a man who could call down owls. He wore a cloak of softest brown, and he had a wide-brimmed hat, and he carried a willow wand. And every night he would walk into the clearing in the woods. And every night a scattering of people from the village would come to see. And there was always Khan, the boy from the village, always by his side. The man walked into the clearing, and he looked up into the night sky. He had shadows in his face, but not in his eyes, and he made no sound. The owl man raised his wand to the night sky, and the owls came. They came swooping on noiseless wings, to perch on his hat, to perch on his shoulder, to gather on branches closest to where he stood. Always, the owls came. By day, the man worked in the owl barn. There were wings to be mended and legs to be splinted. He held an owl closely. Khan asked, "How do you find the owls who need your help?" "They find me," said the man. He held the screech owl firmly. Now, when an owl is sick or frightened, you must hold it firmly. That way it can't hurt itself or you. Always remember that. "I will," said Khan. "But I wish I knew the owls as you do." "You will learn." The next night, the man walked into the forest clearing, and Khan ran silently to his side, silently like an owl in flight. He asked, "What kind is that?" "Barn owl," said the man, and his voice was so high that for a moment Khan thought the sound of it was the wind in the trees. The barn owl swiveled its white flower face, raised its wings, and then closed again. Just then, an owl no bigger than a sparrow came to nestle in the shadow of the man's hat. "Elf owl," he said, and he stroked its pale chest feathers until its eyes closed. Then from deep in the dark of the trees came a hoot, hoot, hooting, and a great horned owl cut the air to land on a stunted branch so close that Khan could see the ring of white feathers that lay mysteriously at its throat. Owls everywhere, and the man in the middle, his cloak wrapped around him like a marsh mist, and Khan, always Khan. The next night, a stranger appeared. His eyes narrowed as the birds dropped from the trees. "A man who could command the birds of the air has power indeed," he said. "He does not command," said Khan. But the stranger wasn't listening. The following night, the man who could call down owls did not walk on the path to the forest clearing. The stranger walked, and he wore the cloak and carried the willow wand. Khan ran up and tugged at his cloak. "Where is the man who can call down owls? What have you done with him?" The stranger pushed the boy aside. "You took his cloak and his hat and his willow wand." "He gave them to me." "He would not give them," said Khan. "All right then, I took them, and his power along with them." And the stranger's smile was as cold as death. and Khan was afraid. The people clustered around the stranger now as he walked into the clearing. And it was then that Khan looked up and he saw a great snowy owl. He had never seen such a big and beautiful bird, its giant wings whitening the earth below. And it was then that Khan knew that the owl was the man who could call down owls. And Khan knew how the stranger had come by the cloak and hat and willow wand. And he knew that the man who could call down owls would never again walk on the earth. The stranger raised his wand to the night sky, and the owls came. Khan had never seen so many. The sky moved with them. A hawk owl dropped on pointed wings, and its talons raked the stranger's head and the hands that he raised to protect himself. A great gray owl came, its flight slow and measured, and its beak found the stranger's cheek. And there were other owls everywhere, swooping, shearing, searing. The air hissed to the beat of owl wings. The stranger was bleeding now, crawling for the shelter of the trees, the cloak dropping from behind him to lie in a drift of snow. The stranger was gone now, and so were the owls. And the people stood mute and frightened. For a long time, Khan looked at the wand lying in the drift of snow. Then he slowly walked over to it. And it was then that he looked up in the sky and he saw the great snowy owl drifting upward, drifting to melt into the clouds in front of the moon. And Khan lifted the wand to the night sky. And the owls came. They came on noiseless wings to perch on his shoulder, to perch on his wand, to gather on branches closest to where he stood, chirping and screeching and filling the night with love. The owls came.